everybody, and welcome to Love, Peace, Harmony Live. My name is Alexia Cito, and I am delighted to be here with you today and every Monday at 1 p.m. for our Love, Peace, Harmony Live session. And I want to send a special love, peace, harmony welcome to all of those joining us for the first time. In these sessions, we connect to the love, peace, harmony field. And this field is made of the beautiful calligraphies you see behind me and the love, peace, and harmony song, both of which were created from our founder, Dr. and Master Zhigong Sha. And he is a world-renowned healer, humanitarian. He is a medical doctor trained in China, a traditional Chinese medicine practitioner, and he is a grandmaster of calligraphy. Now, this is not any ordinary calligraphy art. This art and the special song of love, peace, and harmony activates this invisible field. And this field has the ability to uplift and transform our life. You can check out our YouTube and our Instagram for many stories of people around the world who use these tools in their daily life to bring transformation by uplifting our frequency and vibration, and by connecting to and tapping into this positive information, energy, and matter vibrational frequency field of the song and calligraphy. We also have amazing humanitarian projects and hundreds of volunteers who are all over the world, and they offer community service from places like cancer centers to orphanages to creating clean water and so much more, uplifting communities, because the pathway to create world peace that Dr. and Master Zhigong Sha shares is through our individual transformation, uplifting our families, our communities, our cities, countries, and ultimately the world, because we are one and we are connected. And so it is very exciting when we get to hear stories and share stories in this uplifting field. So today is a bit of a special day. It is Zero Discrimination Against Those Who Have Experienced HIV and AIDS Day through the United Nations. And those of you that have been following our journey and community for a long time will know our special guest today. He is Shunya Barton, and he is one of our beloved volunteers and was a global team member for many years. And he has an extraordinary wealth of experience in the nonprofit field, over 30 years, and has his own journey and story with HIV and AIDS. And he was one of the first wave of people in the 80s in the United States, in San Francisco, actually, to be diagnosed, and has quite an extraordinary journey where he's applied many of the tools and techniques that you will have learned throughout your time with us through Dr. and Master Zhigong Sha, such as the calligraphy, the song, and more, to move through his journey to uplift and transform his life. And he brings a very special colleague of his on the show today. So we're actually going to be airing and sharing with you this exclusive interview. It was a Pride special, and we are re-airing it today on this special day for everyone. So sit back and enjoy this extraordinarily inspirational conversation. And I would love to hear your experience in the chat, and we'll be seeing each other after for a little love, peace, and harmony boost as well.
Our guest is Vince Crisostomo. Vince is originally from Guam, and he has been a pioneer in the HIV/AIDS movement from the early 80s on. He has been in the heart and soul of creating positive transformation and fighting for transformation, for more understanding, more love, more peace, more harmony. He has been at the forefront of the AIDS epidemic from the very beginning. I had the honor of working with him in the National Coalition for HIV positive Asian and Pacific Islanders. He's a leader, an advocate, a supporter, and a friend to many. He shares a huge perspective and continues to serve in the AIDS community in a program for seniors with HIV/AIDS funded by the Elizabeth Taylor AIDS Foundation. Please welcome my dear friend, Vince Crisostomo. Welcome. So if we can unmute your mic, that would be wonderful.
Okay.
Great.
They missed my big hello.
So tell us about how you got involved with HIV and AIDS. It's been your life's work.
Yeah. So let's see, I started as a volunteer in New York City in 1985. I worked at a bar in the village called Uncle Charlie's. And I noticed that week to week, many of the people that I had come to know didn't show up. And I would ask, where's it's like, oh, he's not feeling well, or oh, you know. And then I learned that they were actually sick. And I remember I had gone to visit somebody at St. Vincent's Hospital on 7th Avenue. And I just remembered walking in, you know, they didn't have enough hospital beds at the time. And so people were on gurneys, and it was just to be 20, how old was I? 24, to see something like that was really jarring. You know, I'd been living in Japan. So like in the years leading up to this 1980, so I moved to New York in 1984. And so I didn't really understand all of the ramifications that HIV had in San Francisco and then in New York. So I was learning. And so that's how I became a volunteer. And I would visit people in their hospital rooms, the buddy program, you know. And I was pretty young. And then we would do fundraisers at Uncle Charlie's, and we would raise money. I always, not that it was a competition, but I always managed to bring in more than everybody else on the floor, you know.
Well, we have to get you on our fundraising committee.
Oh, you're talking pennies, though, you know. So that's how it started. And then, you know, at one point I was doing something, there was something called Service Through Touch, which was massage, like touching people who were in the final stages. And at 1989, I found out that I was positive, and learned that, you know, I'd been positive since 1987. And then met my partner. Well, actually got together with my partner. We'd actually known each other for a while, and we ended up moving to San Francisco in November of 1990. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I left Guam. I'm from Guam in Chamorro. I left Guam in 1977, but I had my first coming out in 1979 at the Pride Parade here. And so Jesse and I moved here in November 1990, and, you know, I became his caretaker. And in fact, you know, last week we had the quilt here in San Francisco, and I was there, and I ran into my boss, Robert. He and his partner had opened a restaurant that I worked at, and I would always come to work late. He called me to the office. It's like, hey, why are you always? So, you know, my partner's not well. And it's really hard to leave him in the mornings. I don't know what's going to happen. You know, like I could come back, and I was like 20, 29, 30. And he said, oh, and then you remember him putting his hand on my shoulder and just telling me, you know, Vince, I took care of my brother. And it's really hard. And he said, right now, there's only one way that it ends. And I just remembered that, and he didn't fire me. I kept working there. And then, you know, one day it just became too much. I couldn't leave Jesse, but we did end up getting married in June of 1991. And the restaurant, Robert and his partner, they catered the food and didn't charge us a cent. And I remember they had this cake, our wedding cake was this, I think it was like Lemon Dream or something like that. And remember handing it to Jesse, who, he was kind of weak. He started going this way and just catching the cake before it hit the ground, before it hit him. And even our wedding was kind of like an uncertain thing, because I thought, oh my God, are we going to have it around his bed? It wasn't, when you think about a wedding, you think of all these things, and it ended up being quite a humble affair, instead of big flowers and all that stuff. It was flowers from the farmer's market. But, we had about a dozen people, and it was beautiful. Jesse and I were also one of the first, I think, 50 people to sign up for domestic partnership.
So in 1991, it wasn't legal to get married at that time, was it?
You could get a domestic partnership.
Okay.
Was, it was challenged, and it became actual full policy, which I actually worked on in 1994. But we were one of the first 50 couples, and Jesse told me, you've got to fight for this. We should have this choice. And, and I wasn't so keen on marriage. For me, long term at that point was like 2 weeks. And, but, and the reason why I'm focusing so much time on him is because he really did influence how I kind of cultivated my work afterwards. It's like at his memorial service in New York, there were like 400 people showed up, and Jesse had done, he worked with severely disabled kids doing physical therapy, and all of these people just showed up and they just loved him. And I remember thinking, God, I wonder if I could do anything like that. Could I ever, do anything could even compare to what he's done? So, as it turned out, fate presented opportunities, and I was lucky. I worked for what became API Wellness Center. I was, up until a certain point, I had the distinction of working there the longest. I had to apply for like 12 jobs before they hired me. And then the first thing that happened was I got named to the LGBTQI. Now it's just LGB at the time. Now we added the T in 1994, and recently I was reappointed, and it's LGBTQI plus advisory committee. I actually got to update the gender policy. So, if you stick around long enough, you can kind of correct the things that, you did. But, it just kind of set in motion, all these things. I've just always been lucky. The right opportunity showed up. I don't know honestly how I lasted so long, because I didn't intend to last. I thought I would work 6 months and I'd go in disability, because I wasn't expected to see 30. I just turned 61. But, it always just turned out that, I just always happened to get in. And then I'm jumping ahead, but 2000, we were doing capacity building work in Guam. That's where we founded PJAG, after I moved. But they had a proposal that was due for gay men of color. And so, I happened to be on the island, and I looked at the proposal. I'm like, oh God, this is never going to get funded. So I took it and redid it. It was 13 pages. And I was like, this is never going to get funded. We sent it off. I was at CDC a few weeks later, and they said, Vince, we have a huge surprise for you. And I'm like, what? And they said, did you remember this proposal from Guam? I'm like, yeah. They said, well, it was the highest rated proposal in this. I'm like, it was? I mean, we almost didn't get it out because everything closed. The post office closed. And we had to call somebody's uncle who knew someone, and, and all this networking. And then we gave them the proposal. They said, I'm not going to get funded, but it got funded. And lo and behold, people said, this has your name written all over it.
And tell people what PJAG is.
Oh, Pacific Island Jurisdiction AIDS Action Group. So
that's covering Guam and
the six Pacific Island jurisdictions and countries that countries and territories that belong to the U.S. or are U.S. affiliated. I call them possessions. That's what they're treated like, but colonization. So, so I ended up moving to Guam and founding PJAG. And then I was also the executive director of the Core Life Foundation, which was the first organization, community-based organization funded to do HIV work in the Pacific. And then after a year and a half and a lot of drama, my health started to take a turn for the worse. And so I found out that I was like, I forget what the word is, but was on salvage. like I was resistant to every medication that was available for HIV. And again, got lucky. I was in DC for a meeting and ended up, a friend of mine there knew somebody who was doing the study on Truvada. He made a pitch, I was accepted. And so, I've been basically on that same regimen that they started me on in 2002 up until now, just one slight change. Did that for a few years, then jumped and went to Bangkok. My doctor in DC goes, "You're going to do what?" I was like, "I'm going to go do this startup in Asia." He goes, "With your immune system and your health, you're going to give up healthcare?" He's like, "Why?" I said, "My heart is like what's telling me to do this." And he goes, "Your heart could also, he's like, he said, well, he told me, his advice to me was like, never go to India. Don't swim in fresh water in Asia, and never go to India, because he said that would possibly, he's like, you survived HIV and AIDS, but your stomach could probably not survive the viruses in India if you eat stuff." I thought that was funny because he was from India. And anyway, so I went to Thailand. I was there for 6.5 years. I was on the UNAIDS board for about 6 years, and did a lot of the initiatives that's, getting to zero, all that kind of stuff. Did that. Got to do a lot of the really progressive wish list, bucket list policies that we had in San Francisco. Got to kind of introduce that. I was the first non-government person to speak at a high-level meeting at the UN and get what I said on paper. So, things where sex work is work. You need to legalize and get rid of punitive laws on drugs and stuff like that. So it's pretty amazing. Also helped found a few networks of key populations. Then lo and behold, health again. And I ended up coming back to San Francisco. And now I'm doing HIV and aging work. I'm the director of aging services at San Francisco AIDS Foundation. I've been doing this work now for 8 years. It's one of the first, if not the first, program of its kind in the US. And, we've recently expanded into a department. In the last year, I've been appointed to the Long-Term Care Coordinating Council, reappointed my second term, like the first time was a Ben, Equity on Aging, which advises the governor on the master plan for aging. And then the LGBTQI+, I was reappointed to that by the mayor. And, around the long-term care work and the aging work, I'm like, oh my God, these are all the people that didn't get the memo the first time around. So it's like fighting the same battles. But I said, but this time I know what I'm doing. Last time I got lucky. This time it can be intentional. And so, I just got to do what I can do. And, and I've been very lucky, because the position that I ended up applying for, friends had been telling me about it for a year before I came back. They said, "Oh, the San Francisco AIDS Foundation is starting up this program. You should apply. You'd be great." I'm like, "No, I've done my part. Nobody can ask me to do anything more. I need to do something different, like retail or something, something different." And
I'm just laughing because I can relate.
Oh, I was just like, I do not want to see an L, a G, a B, a T, a Q. I don't want to see the word community. I'm like, I'm done with that. Lo and behold, it came down to either get a job or go on general assistance. And having helped many people off of that, I said, that is such a hard hole to crawl out of. Not that if you have to do it, you have to, but I just know that it's just so difficult. So it got down. I applied for the job, didn't hear anything. The day before I had my general assistance appointment, I called them and said, "Hey, I applied for this job. Do you think you might hire me? Because tomorrow I have to go." I'm like, "Oh yeah, we were going to call you. Can you come tomorrow? Can you start tomorrow?" I'm like, "Actually, I can." So instead of going to general assistant, I went there, and the rest has been history. And I said, I didn't want a high profile. I've had a very high profile. I've got to do some pretty groundbreaking work around the aging piece. I was the Grand Marshal for Pride in 2019. So 40 years after coming out, I got a parade. And, it's one thing to work the parade and do all the kind of stuff that we do. It is actually another thing to be in the parade and going down the street, on Market Street, and seeing people, and particularly seeing younger people, people of color. That was just amazing to watch, and thinking, and then at one point, I remember the three of us were in the car One of them was my mentor, Steve Blue, who I've known forever. One of them was Alan Kismore, who's one of my first volunteers. And we were in the car together, and we were riding down, and at one point we just took our hands up and we went like this, and the roar was just deafening. So that was, that was before the next year we had shelter in place. So I just said, does that mean I'm still the Grand Marshal? Is my reign going to like continue for a couple of years? I'm like, no. But, I have been blessed. I cannot tell you. And even, though I didn't want to do that, because it's not like I haven't tried to quit before, but I always feel like I got pointed back. I do think that if ever there was a purpose for me to be put on this planet, it was probably this work. Because, nobody really stayed in the field as long as I have. People kind of went and got better paying jobs, or I don't know, or worse paying jobs. A lot of the guys I work with got strung out on crystal meth, and I see them from time to time like, oh, and maybe that would have happened to me if I had stayed. But, I dodged that bullet. And I'm very grateful.
Yeah. So what are some of the changes that you've seen in the LGBTQ community? You've been a leader for decades. Where do you think we've come from? Where do you think we're at? Where do you think we're going?
I really do think that people need to pay attention to the whole, like what's happening with the transgender, non-conforming, intersex communities right now. I mean, a lot of what we fought for is what's happening now. And, one of the things that I found in my aging work is that when you take a training, it's very biased toward male and female. Like the oldest male brother is the worst, it's usually he's the culprit. The female is always the caretaker. And I don't argue with some of that. I mean, there is truth that in previous generations, the women in the family, even in HIV and AIDS, women took care and often don't get credited for that. But I do think it's something that we need to see. And I don't think that we should wait till something's an issue. I mean, with COVID, we found once again that Black and Brown communities are disproportionately affected. Why is that? What didn't change? How much money did we put into cultural humility training and anti-racism training and all those trainings, and where did it go? It's like we need stronger policies. I think as a community of people who've been marginalized or oppressed, we need to look at how do we support our allies? Like with HIV, it was never just about being LGBTQ and HIV. There was always other issues, whether it was clean water, clean water, food to eat, there were just all these things. And so the other thing, like, I think we have some incredible stories. But one of the things that I'm very pleased about is that they seem to have happier endings now, because I don't know, like I used to be like, when we used to do the gay Asian representation thing, I'm like, are we that desperate to put our name on just anything so that we can just be included in the Frameline Film Festival? Because I'm kind of I don't relate to what some of that stuff. And I'm happy to say that I've seen those changes, I've been working in San Francisco now for like 30 years, off and on. But, I've always had a presence here since when I moved here. I still work with people who can't say my last name. And why is that? I also feel that, somewhere in the early 2000s, after the medications came out, people warned about complacency, and that's what has happened. There is, because people didn't expect people living with HIV to live this long, they're not prepared. They didn't plan, like the people themselves living with HIV didn't plan, but so neither did the services. And so we need to think about that, One of my guys in my network was talking about how he didn't think he'd have to be around to take care of his kids. He's in his 70s. And it's his third pandemic. And it's like, he's like, and I'm taking care of my kids. This one is sicker than me. I'm like, well, that's how you pay them back for all your whining when you were sick. No, I don't know. But so, I mean, I really do think that we need to think there's what happens and there's what we perpetuate. And sometimes that's by staying silent. Sometimes that's by not being willing to push past your comfort level, like to stay in your comfort level. I mean, why is it women that are always the ones speaking up about their rights? Why don't their men, their partners, their sons or whatever, why don't they ever speak up, about this so that we're all kind of supporting each and lifting each other up? I mean, that's one of the things I've learned with working with some of the groups. I work with Parivar, which is a South Asian queer trans group, Lavender Phoenix, which is a queer trans API group. And, they have taught me a lot. They have taught me about being my full big self. And hanging out with them, I was like, nobody ever asked me when I was 24 what I wanted to be or how I wanted my life to be when I turned 60, 61, because it wasn't that I would live that long. And so never count. It's like my friend Douglas Yonan once told me, when you're dead, you're dead. But it is when you're alive, and as long as you're breathing, there's hope, and so that's another thing that there's a lot of just horrible things happening. Like, there was a shooting in the Castro, or on the way to the Castro this afternoon, and they shut down Muni and stuff like that. Like, we really need to do something about guns.
Today?
Any wonder? Yeah, it happened today. I mean, in the Castro, like coming from, I was going to say Pleasant Hill, but that's not true. It's coming from whatever the stop is after Castro. That, that is usually an area that doesn't have a lot of violence, but we need to think of how we align ourselves. I think we need to think about who we put in office. I think this is an LGBT thing, and you may need to stop me at some point because I'll just keep going on my list. But I think it's really, that the smallest turnout in June of this year was able to undo the vote that had happened by one of the largest turnouts. And I just think, okay, it's just not right. And it makes me rethink my alliances with I think we need another political party or two or three, because I just think the two current ones we have aren't cutting it. But, I just think, to make optimistic choices is something that I learned in COVID the second time around, because I thought, oh my God, this is like, I've been through this before, and I was just like crumpling. And I thought, no, this is a chance to reframe, rethink, redo. And so I'm glad to say I've come out of that fairly well, because it can be expected. And I think what my loan agent told me, the person, was that I needed to make choices that are optimistic. Optimism and we always need to be hopeful, because if we're not hopeful, what are we fighting for? Yeah. And if we can't fight for ourselves, then fight for the young people, like the young queer trans folks that we're talking about today, are so persecuted. And there's a reason why they don't feel safe. There's a reason why they don't trust the police. So what do we do? How do we work with them to make them, and, I went on about women's rights, but the whole Roe versus Wade, like, why aren't people in the streets clamoring?
For people who are watching who are not Americans.
I did not know that.
Roe versus Wade is the woman's right to choose when it comes to giving birth. And that is a big controversial issue in the United States right now. That has been a protected right from our Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court, there were documents leaked out of the court that were saying not only are we going to turn that back, but a lot of other things that people consider rights, if they weren't in the Constitution, those aren't going to be protected either. So that's what we're dealing with in the US, and the implication for our community is that you're next in line.
Yes, so. Exactly. And that you have one political party saying that the current president didn't win. I'm just like, okay, it's like, but what I tell everybody is, like, cultivate joy. Joy is a form of resistance, because, and if you focus on all that stuff that's just nasty, that's going to bring you in, that's what it will do, so be resilient. In fact, I'm hosting an event after this called Celebrating Resilience with Pride. And we're going to take, some of our members a moment that they've had in their life in the last couple of years that really points out to their resilient. Because LGBTQI plus folks are resilient, and we just need to remember that.
So what's the moment or two in your life that you think of when you think of being resilient?
I think it would probably have to be what I'm going through now with the family stuff, with losing my dad and having my mom. I didn't plan to be around, because I was told I was going to die when I wouldn't see 30, but now I'm 61. And I'm finding that just being open to those feelings tells me how resilient I am. And maybe it took everything that's happened to me on the way up to prepare me for this. But it's like I'm really seeing that here. And it's like my dad, told me on the last day that I talked to him, before he was getting out of quarantine. He had COVID and they were getting out of quarantine, and I told him, I'd been promoted and I was starting a new job. And he said, Vince, be proud. We're proud of you, so be proud. And take care of yourself and remember that we love you. And it goes back to that thing that we use at Shanti and honoring our experience. Love heals. And so love heals. How can I help? Where do you want to go from here? So
beautiful. Anything else that you'd like to share with folks today?
Well, just, if I can do it, you can do it.
There you go.
And I guess, what it is that, what is the story that you want to tell? When you die, you see the year that you're born on your tombstone or wherever they put you, and then there's a dash, and then there's the year that you passed. So the year you're born, and the most interesting part of your life is that dash that nobody ever gets to know about. And so what is the story that you want to tell? And what are you doing to make that happen? I mean, that I already went on my thing about better stories, but I mean, we as a community, because can you imagine, we went through all this stuff. We went through, like, what is it? AIDS, HIV killed 700 million people in the US. It's killed, 700,000 people. COVID has killed 1 million. Like, we've gone through all this only to lose all of our rights, or lose all the work. It's like, no, we need a better story. We need it's like, so what can we do to make that happen? Does that make sense?
It does. It does. I think on a personal and on a societal level.
Do you say societal level?
Both on a personal and a societal level.
Oh, societal. You said suicidal. I'm like, hey.
No, we won't go there.
Okay.
Yeah. I have to say, you are one of the people in my life that really exemplifies resilience. You and I have met and our lives keep intersecting.
Yep.
And often when they do, it's times that you're under a lot of stress because of the work that you're doing, helping people.
Yeah.
And yet you always rise above it. You always show up. You always make sure that people feel loved and cared for. And I just admire that so much about you.
Oh, thank you. So, it's like, they do say that what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And as I tell people, I'm strong enough. It's like, I have enough character. I don't need to build anymore. I'm happy with, but if that's the way it is, so be it.
Well, I'm glad you're around. I'm glad you're doing the work that you're doing. I think you've made a huge difference in so many lives. Many people who will never know the things that you are doing to change the world. So thank you for all you've done.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me.
I just love this interview and want to thank everyone that is watching live with us, who's sharing your hearts. Maria, Emmeline, and it really is so inspiring to hear Vincent and Shunya share on this special day. And some of the themes that I took out were love heals. I saw someone here share, yes, love heals. It really does. Like Dr. Master Jigong Shah says, love transforms all blockages. Love melts all blockages. So just imagine the power of love. And to see that exemplified through Vincent and his lived experience through Shunya is so profound. And it's so beautiful what Vincent closed with, that dash. And it's funny because my mom, she always says, live your dash, live the dash, right? Because it's the year we're born, the year we die. There's this dash, it's our life. So we must live it and embrace it. So before we close today, we're going to close in just a few minutes. I want to invite us to take a little love, peace, and harmony boost. And this is an example of how we can use the song in such a simple way, how we can use the field in such a simple way throughout our day. So wherever you are, take a few moments. If you can close your eyes, I invite you to close your eyes and just take a nice deep breath and release. And take another nice deep breath at your own pace and release. And if you even want to make like an audible sound when you exhale, something that feels good to you, feel free. Take another inhale and release. And just bring yourself in this moment, let everything else go. And what we're simply going to do is just connect to the field for just a few minutes. And as we do this, you can still keep your eyes closed if it's comfortable for you. You can have them open if that's more comfortable for you. I am going to trace this calligraphy, which means love. I means love. AI means love. And we just spoke about love heals. Love melts all blockages. Okay. So whatever you brought into this session, now is the time to just let it go and be in the stillness, if only for a moment. And I'm going to play the Love, Peace, and Harmony song and invite you to fully relax in whatever way feels good for you right now. And just open your heart to receive this vibration of love. And wherever you find yourself, just taking a few nice deep breaths, and bringing yourself back to this time and space where you are. Maybe stretching your body, wiggling your fingers and toes. A nice inhale and exhale. Let everything go. And just remembering that you can come back to this vibration anytime. Just connect if you have a Love, Peace, Harmony calligraphy card. If you go on our YouTube and listen to the song. So in any way that it feels good for you, but you can tap into this field, this vibration anytime throughout the day. And this is just a small example of how you can take a little pause for peace and give yourself a nice little boost whenever you need it. So I want to welcome you. If it feels comfortable and you feel inspired to share in the chat, any final words. Hi, Kevin, saying his hello. June, very inspirational. So happy to be here. So happy to have you here. Amazing. So as always, we want to thank you so much for joining us on Love, Peace, and Harmony Live. And we will be back again with you very soon. You can always check out lovepeaceharmony.org for any updates and sharing. And we are very excited because next week we will be announcing the winner of our teddy bear naming contest. So we have the most adorable little teddy bear, our Love, Peace, Harmony bear, and you'll have the opportunity to name it. And those that are chosen will receive an I Believe in Love, Peace, Harmony t-shirt and the sweetest little bear that you can have as a reminder. And I want to thank you, Torild, saying thank you so much for this beautiful field and the sharings and the beautiful blessing. Amazing. Thank you for being with us. And thank you, everyone. We will see you again next time. Be sure to share these streams if they're helpful for you. You can always find all of the recordings on here, Facebook, and also on our YouTube. And if you're not yet with us on Instagram, check us out because our amazing team have been putting up some great content, new streams, videos, content for us to stay updated with what's happening. There's so many volunteer community service projects, so many activities at Love, Peace, Harmony Foundation. And of course, your contributions and donations make such a difference. And they're really the reason we're able to do what we do all around the world. So please donate generously, as always, at lovepeaceharmony.org. And have a Love, Peace, Harmony week. We will